Hello and welcome back. So in this video we want to display the results that we have inside this data in the success callback. So in the last video we did a console.log and we saw the data being returned. Now we need to display the data. To do that, I'll just create a function, create a new function, and I can call it show or whatever. And it's going to take in the parameter, and the parameter, call it data as well. So this function show is going to take a parameter, and what it's going to do is it's going to return the result. All the results we're going to display is going to return all of them. So get it more space. So the first thing I want to return here is I want to return the weather.main. So if we go back here, so I want to return this weather.main, which is group of weather parameters, then weather.description. Now to do that, I can put it inside an h2 tag, then close the h2. So inside I'll have I can put the text that says strong So inside I'm going to have I will just call it weather here, or we can change this to h3. We don't want it to be very big. h3. Then inside here we put double quotes. Inside the double quotes we're going to do this. Now what we want to do is we're going to use data. So when we call this function show inside this success callback, the data here, we're going to pass in this data that we have here into this show method. So as I said earlier, that if we want to get the data for main, we do something like this: data.weather. Because it's inside an array, we add the index, and the index is 0 from what I explained earlier. If we go to the result here, inside weather, we have an array here. This is the array. This is the array. Then inside the array, we have an object which occupies index 0. So to get any value from this object, we use the index, which is 0. So we say data.weather with the index dot main. So this is going to give us the value here for main. This value we have here, main, which is what we also have here. We do that, then we add the plus sign. We can just copy this. With this plus sign, it will show that whatever will be added is going to be returned as well. So the next one is going to be weather.description. So we are displaying the description. Let's take this out. Let's close this. Let's see these two data first before we continue. But first we need to use this method. To use the method, we can create a new variable, call it widgets, and we'll say show. Now this show is going to take a parameter here, and we're going to pass in the object or the data that we returned. Then the next thing is we want to display this inside of this div with id show. So we come down here, we use the selector, get the id show dot html. Then inside this we just pass widgets. This is just as simple as we can do it. We created this function here, returning all of these values. Then to use this method, we create a new variable, set it equal to show, then pass in the data returned inside the show method. Then using the selector to get the ID of where we want the result to be displayed, .html, then we pass in the new variable we created. Now one thing I want to do is I want to empty the input field when the user clicks on the button. So to do that, I'll just set this to empty, put empty quotes inside the val method. So I have this right now. Let's go ahead and see these results. We go to our browser, let's refresh. we can get Tallinn. We click on search. Now we can see we have weather clear, then weather description. We can change this to description. So we refresh, we do London. Now we have the weather and the weather description. We do Madrid. Here we see the weather is rain and the description light rain. So we can see now that we are displaying the results that we have. Now the next thing we want to return is, let's return the temperature. So we return the temperature. We can use H3 as well. Then inside we use the strong tag. We use the strong tag and we call it temperature. Now inside it, what we want to get is the temperature. But now let's go back to the open weather map. Here we can see we don't have the temperature inside this weather that we have here. The weather we have here, rather we have it inside of main. So instead of weather, we're going to do data.main. But this is not returning an array, just an object. So we just do main dot whatever key we have inside of the object. Like we have here, we just do main dot the key that we have. Then it's going to show us the result. So for this, it's going to be data.main.temp to get the temperature. Then the next one is going to be, let me just copy this. We can get the pressure. The humidity. Then also we can get the wind speed, or let's get the minimum temperature, maximum temperature. So to get the minimum temperature, we use temp_min, temp_max. So temp_min to get the minimum temperature. Then the maximum temperature is going to be temp_max. Then what else again do we want to get? Now for this sea level and ground level, if we go to our results where we have the main, here we can see that we are not, the results for sea level and ground level are not returned. So we don't have the sea level and ground level inside the object. So if we try to get this data for sea level and ground level, the result will be returned as undefined. So there is no need to get this data because we don't have them here inside this object returned for main. But we can return the minimum temperature, the maximum temperature, humidity, temperature, and pressure. Then the next thing we want to get is we want to get the wind speed and the wind direction. So if you go here and look for wind, we can get the wind speed and the wind direction. Here we have wind, then we have the speed, we have the direction as well. So to get that, we just do wind.speed, wind.degree, which is going to give us the wind direction in degrees. So we go here, we get the wind speed. Instead of main, it's going to be wind.speed. Then here is going to be wind.degree. Now we need to change all of this. Temperature, this is going to be pressure. Then this is going to be humidity. Then the next one is, you can set minimum temperature. Here we have maximum temperature, wind speed, wind direction. So we have all of this data now, and we already called the show method. So let's go to our browser and see how it looks. We refresh this page, get Tallinn. Now we can see wind, the weather is clear, the description, the temperature, pressure, humidity, minimum temperature, maximum temperature, wind speed. Now, as you can see, wind direction here is undefined because for the city, Tallinn, it's not returning the result for wind direction, so it's displaying this as undefined. So if we try to check another city, let's try another city to see. Now you can see that for wind direction, the value for London is not undefined. If we check New York, we can see that it's returning the value. So if the API call is made and for a particular field there is no result, it's just going to return it as undefined. So here we can see that we are returning the values. But what we want to do now is we want to display the name of the city as well as the country code, because here it's returning the country code. It's returning the country as country code. So for Great Britain, it's going to return GB. For Japan, it's going to return JP. Then we can get the city name. So let's go here at the top of this page. We can bring this down. We can bring this down and use H2 tag /H2. So what we want to return is we want to return the text current weather for, then we add first we want to get the city name, and to get the city name we use name, so it's going to be just city.name. We just use or name instead. So we come here, it's just going to be data.name. This is going to give us the city name. Then we put a comma. Then the next thing is going to be data dot. To get the country code, we do sys.country to get the country code. Then if you want to get the sunrise, sunset, the message and whatever, you use sys dot the name here. So to get the country, it's going to be data.sys.country. Then we close this. So we have all of this data now. So it's going to display current weather for the city name, comma, the country code. Let's go ahead and try it out. I hope it doesn't give us an error. So if we refresh, say Tallinn, now we can see current weather for Tallinn, then the country code Estonia. So we'll say London, current weather for London, Great Britain. Say Tokyo, current weather for Tokyo, Japan. So we can see that we are returning all of these results and also returning the city name and the country code. So we've displayed this. Now what we can do, we can just add this, some text to this, give it some CSS style. So we see style equal to, give it font size, let's say 40 pixels, font weight, let's make it bold. So let's see how it looks. Okay, it's much better. Now let me change this to H3. Let me see how it's going to look. So we refresh the page now. Okay, so we have current weather for Tallinn, Estonia, and we have the weather data. Now what we can do here as well is we can center this, we can place all of this at the center. So to do that, we just move this, the div that holds all of this data. So this div, we just add CSS to it to move it to the center. So we go to our styles.css. So we add the ID show and set the margin to auto, text align, we set it to center. So let's go now, refresh, and let's see. Okay, now right now it doesn't really look that good. I don't like the way we have this ones here at the center, so we can do something about it. Let's just take this out first and go back here. So we want it the way it was. Okay, now let's go back here. Okay, let's add a class here. Outside class, a bootstrap class of test center. So let's see the difference. Okay, we have this now at the center, class of test center. Then the next thing is, if we go back to the styles.css, we can add, let's take out this test align. Let's add a width. Let's add a width of, say, 60%. So we'll see how it looks. So we refresh the page. Now tiling. Now we see that it's been displayed here. Okay, we don't have the selector here, so we add the selector. We save. Let's refresh the page. Moscow. Okay, we can see now we have this being displayed. What you can do is you can decide to add a padding. So I'm just showing you, you can design it whichever way you want, but for me, my main target is just to show you how to display the data, and we've been able to display the data. So what you can do next is find how to design or style these results. What I want to do now next is, let me just add a footer before we continue. Here I can add a footer. So I add a div class footer. Then I add a div with class container from Bootstrap. Then div with class row. Then inside this I can add a padding and say copyright, and then we can add CSS to this as well. So we want the text to be at the center, so we add text center, then style, padding top, let's see 30 pixels. Then here for the text, we can give it a style of color white. Then we can just put the HTML code for copy, then current weather app. Before we can see this, let's just add a CSS to this class here. So we go here, footer, we add a background color. We want to use what we already have, I think, inside the Jumbotron. Yes, we copy this from the Jumbotron. We copy, we paste here. Then we set the width to 100%. Then we give it a height of something like 80%. And right now, let's go ahead and see how it looks first. So we refresh our page. Now we can see we have the CSS and the footer inside the page. But what we need to do is we need to add a height to the container that holds the results, so that it's going to push this down. But before we do that, let's make this to be bold. So let's go to our current.html page. Here, let's add style. Then we give it a margin or a height. Let's try 600 pixels and see. So we are adding a height to this container that holds all of these results. So we go back. Now you can see if we try to search for a city, right now we need to give it some little margin at the bottom here. Let's increase the height first to see 650. We refresh the page. Okay, this is way looking much more better. But I know the styling for this test, they're not looking very good. So on your own, you can just style it whichever way you want. So we've added this footer. Now let's add here the font. So let's add another style here. Font size. We set it to 20 pixels and font width. Set it to bold. Let's go ahead and refresh the page. Okay, right now we can see now that our footer is looking much better. So if we search for a city, Madrid, now we get this result displayed. So we have all of this. What I need to do next in the next video is add the units to these values like temperature, pressure, humidity, wind speed, wind direction, and also add the image icon so that it's going to be displayed here.